Have you ever wanted to help someone even though they didn't ask for it? How did that go? Have you ever wondered if your good intentions might have caused unintended negative effects? In the Zen story you're about to hear, you'll see why it's best to wait until someone asks for help. Stay until the end, as Buddhist wisdom could change how you view human relationships. You'll learn how helping those who don't want help can negatively impact both their lives and yours, affecting your karma in unexpected ways. But before we continue, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share the video. These small gestures help us produce new content every day for your spiritual growth. In a quiet Buddhist monastery, surrounded by lush gardens and ancient trees, the wise monk Noro gathered his disciples to discuss a topic close to their hearts. Curiosity filled the air as they fixed their eyes on Noro, eager to understand why their attempts to help others hadn't always gone as planned. Life is like a great river, and each of us is a small boat navigating its tumultuous course, Noro began calmly. Often we try to steer other people's boats without waiting to be asked. To illustrate this, Noro shared an ancient story about a young monk who, eager to help a struggling companion, intervened without being asked. Despite his good intentions, his actions set off a chain of unexpected events, creating a complex web of challenges for both. Suffering is a necessary part of our spiritual growth, Noro continued. Each person, like a jewel, is shaped by life's pressures and challenges. When we intervene without being called, we rob them of the chance to learn, grow, and strengthen themselves. To clarify his lesson, Noro told the story of two friends, Shu and Masu, who had shared joys and sorrows since school days. One day, Shu learned of Masu's financial troubles and secretly paid off some of his debts. While Shu's intentions were good, his gesture had unexpected and disastrous consequences. Masu, though grateful, felt deprived of the chance to resolve the situation on his own. Additionally, he was uncomfortable that Shu had discovered personal details he wanted to keep private. This led to an emotional detachment from his friend. On the other hand, Shu began to feel strain in their friendship, realizing that his kindness had not brought relief, but rather shame and a shift in their dynamic. In short, unsolicited help had created discord and confusion, demonstrating that even good deeds can have unexpected consequences. Each individual is at the mercy of their own karma, Noro explained, and every action we take, good or bad, comes back to us like an echo. When we help without being asked, we disrupt the delicate balance of another person's karma and paradoxically harm our own as well. The old monk shared more stories, like that of a young man eager to solve his friend's problems without her asking, only to find himself caught in endless difficulties and misadventures. If you enter a labyrinth that is not yours but someone else's without being asked, Noro continued, you could set off a chain reaction of events, creating an intricate web of karmic connections. Your gesture of friendship, no matter how well-intentioned, could end up doing more harm to the friend and to yourself. Imagine wanting to cure someone without asking if they're willing to give up the things that made them sick. Suffering is often caused by past actions, and our intervention could alter the natural course of learning that the individual should experience. Noro then highlighted Buddhist teachings, emphasizing how even he resisted the temptation to intervene without request. Buddha understood the sacredness of individual learning processes and the need to respect each being's karma. Suffering is a severe but precious teacher, Noro continued, using everyday examples to illustrate the concept. He spoke of moments when empathy pushed him to offer help, only to remember that Buddha taught the wisdom of waiting for the person to ask for help. Suffering is almost always the result of past actions, and karma is the supreme law that governs the universe, Noro said. When we intervene unsolicited, we enter a karmic vortex that can drag us into other people's problems with unpredictable consequences for both of us. Suffering is like a teacher guiding us along the path of spiritual growth. To interfere with this process is to deprive others of the wisdom that only suffering can teach. Noro shared more stories about daily life at the monastery, showing how the monks applied these teachings in practice. Dozens of monks I have trained, he added, became wiser and more self-confident precisely because I avoided intervening directly in their problems. By resisting the temptation to solve their issues, I allowed them to face their challenges and learn the lessons that karma had in store for them. Every action we take is like throwing a stone into a pond, Noro said, using a metaphor. The ripples spread and return to us. When we help without being asked, we influence the karma of others and create ripples that impact our own lives. In conclusion, what do we understand from this story? We learn the wisdom of discerning when to reach out and when to wait. Karma, like an unbroken river, carries our actions, and our help can alter the structure of destiny. Before helping someone, we must reflect on what they truly need. Not everyone seeks advice. Sometimes they just need a listening ear and an understanding heart. Respect the sacredness of each individual's path, Noro admonished. Help should never be an impulsive act, but a conscious gesture, respectful of free will and the path of personal and spiritual growth. Life is an intricate web of lessons and opportunities. When we offer help without being called, we can deprive others of the chance to learn about themselves. Wisdom lies in recognizing that sometimes the best lesson is learned through one's own effort and experience. Let our help be a beacon of light offered when requested, with awareness and respect, rather than a chain of unexpected events. How do we understand which individuals to remove from our lives? Every day we interact with various people, and some of them are toxic, filling our lives with negativity. The Zen story you're about to hear will reveal the 9 signs to help you identify those who can undermine your personal growth. So, make yourself comfortable and stay until the end to learn how to defend your emotional balance and inner peace. In a quiet Buddhist monastery in a remote region of Japan lived the elderly and wise monk Hogi. A young woman named Shara, eager to find answers to her anxieties caused by toxic relationships, approached the master with respect. Hogi, it is said that you know the secret to recognizing bad people and protecting inner peace. Please teach me, the young woman asked, eager to learn from the monk's wisdom. Hogi, with his typical calm, replied, "Of course, my dear. If you have the patience to listen, I will tell you about the signs to watch for to understand who is in front of you. First, however, let me make an important premise. The people we call bad are not necessarily monsters. They are toxic in the sense that their behaviors and energies can undermine our serenity and mental well-being. But before distancing them from us, we must try to understand the reasons behind their behavior. Often it is pain and trials they have faced that made them dry, annoying, and even harmful. So, dear Shara, before pushing someone away, ask yourself why they behave this way. Are they truly bad, or is there something making them this way? And can you do anything to prevent them from polluting your emotions? Only after answering this should you decide whether to preserve your mental health by pushing those people away. Shara reflected on Hogi's words, moved by the empathy behind them. If a person can harm us, we must push them away only after ensuring we cannot do anything else, the master continued. Now that we've cleared that up, let's start by looking at the first sign you need to watch out for: constant manipulation. Imagine someone who distorts reality to get what they want. It could be a colleague using deception to advance their career. For instance, when a promotion is possible, they manipulate you by saying superiors speak badly of you and suggest you accept a job offer elsewhere, all to secure the promotion themselves. The young woman listened attentively, recalling a similar experience from a year earlier. The second sign is a lack of genuine empathy, Hoagie continued. Think of someone who shows indifference to your feelings, only interested when it benefits them. This behavior undermines personal relationships because you instinctively feel they don't truly care about you, only showing empathy when they need something. Continuing, Hoagie described the third sign, the constant creation of conflict. Imagine someone who always seeks conflict despite harmonious situations, fueling arguments and discord. This not only generates stress, but also contaminates the surrounding environment, making it toxic. The fourth sign is the constant need for control, Hoagie said. Imagine a friend or partner trying to influence every decision, directing your life according to their wishes. Every time you reveal a plan or desire, they take initiatives to distance you from what you want in favor of their goals. This need for control creates a toxic dynamic, undermining your autonomy and authenticity. Shara reflected on these words while Hoagie moved to the fifth sign, the constant lack of respect for personal limits. Think of someone who ignores your privacy, invades your space, or doesn't respect your requests for solitude. This behavior generates feelings of vulnerability and insecurity because it undermines your personal freedom. Remember, each of us has the right to some space for ourselves. Hoagie then addressed the sixth sign, the frequent use of lies or half-truths. Imagine someone building an intricate labyrinth of lies, obscuring the truth to get what they want. The woman immediately thought of her friend Luca, who constantly exaggerated his experiences to appear more interesting. He told exaggerated or distorted stories to arouse admiration, creating a distorted perception of himself in the eyes of others. This constant tendency to use lies, Hoagie added, represents the sixth sign of ill-intentioned or false people who are ready to harm you in some way. The seventh sign, Hoagie explained, is the pattern of vindictive behavior. Think of someone who, at the slightest sign of criticism or rejection, actively tries to get even or punish you. Chiara immediately thought of Marta, her work colleague, who had reacted to criticism by spreading false and negative news about her to put her in a bad light in front of other employees. This attitude, concluded the monk, can generate a cycle of negativity and destroy the foundations of human relationships. And here we are at the eighth sign to watch out for, the constant search for attention. Imagine a friend who incessantly seeks approval through excessive attitudes or by dramatizing every situation. Chiara thought of a friend from her group who always dramatized her affairs to draw everyone's attention to herself. The ninth sign to watch out for, Hoagie said, is a lack of accountability. Think about those who consistently avoid taking responsibility for their actions, always blaming others. Chiara thought of her brother and at least 3 other people she knew who consistently blamed others for their mistakes. Hoagie paused to let the words settle, making sure Chiara fully understood. Then, in a calm voice, he concluded, recognizing these 9 signs requires acute perception, because we often don't want to see that even people we love can, more or less voluntarily, hurt us. But to preserve our inner peace, it's essential to be in a position to see these signs. So, Chiara, practice awareness and be vigilant in your relationships. The young woman thanked the master for his precious teachings, expressing her gratitude. However, Hoagie felt there was still something to say. In addition to recognizing the signs, always remember to trust your intuition. If something doesn't seem right, take time to reflect, Don't be afraid to end toxic relationships if it helps preserve your serenity and inner peace. In conclusion, what does this story teach us? In the complex dance of human relationships, wisdom lies in awareness. Be aware of the signs, listen to your inner voice, and wisely choose the people who will accompany your spiritual journey. Remember that your inner peace is precious, and you deserve relationships that nurture and preserve it. And before you say goodbye and join us for the next video, remember to leave a comment with your experiences and opinions. Don't accept these 7 things from anyone. Have you ever considered the hidden power that resides in the objects around us? Did you know that every single object you come into contact with emanates and transfers energy? Are you aware that accepting objects from others can have serious repercussions on our physical and mental well-being? If these questions have made you think, you must watch this video all the way through because you will discover the 7 things you must not accept from anyone. So, make yourself comfortable and listen to this Zen story to protect your inner peace and emotional balance. The elderly and wise monk Sho, custodian of ancient secrets and profound spiritual truths, was revered by all for his deep understanding of life and the energy that permeates it. One day, as his disciples gathered around him in the monastery courtyard, Sho began to speak about the importance of discerning the energy surrounding objects in our lives. Have you ever thought about the energy that surrounds what we possess? Asked the wise monk, scanning the faces of his disciples for curiosity and anticipation. You should know that every object we accept from others carries with it not only a material history, but also an energetic history, a reflection of the experiences and emotions of those who touched it. The disciples listened attentively, eager to learn their master's teachings and to understand how to preserve their own serenity. There are 7 objects that we should absolutely avoid accepting from other people, Sho continued, as they can profoundly affect our spiritual energy and well-being. 1. Mirrors. Sho began with mirrors, which, on a symbolic level, can be seen as subtle portals to the profound world of our soul. These objects, the monk said with reverence, are not simply reflections of our physical image, but also mirrors of our inner being. They can reflect our joys, fears, and deepest desires. However, mirrors can also retain the energies of the people who have looked at them, becoming sources of both positive and negative energy. To illustrate, Sho told the story of a young monk who, upon accepting a used mirror from an old hermit, began experiencing strange visions and nightmares. The energy accumulated in the old mirror had carried the hermit's memories and emotions, influencing the young monk more than he had imagined. 2. Salt. The second item Sho mentioned was salt. This simple seasoning, he explained, has the power to absorb and retain the energies of people who touch it. When we accept salt directly from another person's hands, we may unintentionally also welcome their energies, which may be positive or negative. Sho recalled a young cook who attended the temple. One day he accepted some salt from a traveler and began experiencing a strange sensation of oppression and bad mood. The energy retained in the salt had affected the cook's mood and well-being, overshadowing the goodness of the food he prepared. Used mattresses. The third object Sho talked about was used mattresses, those guardians of sleep and rest. Mattresses, he said solemnly, are not only places where we rest our bodies, but also reservoirs of energy accumulated over time. Accepting a mattress used by other people could also mean welcoming their energies, which could profoundly influence the quality of our sleep and inner peace. To illustrate, Sho told the story of a monk who, upon accepting an old mattress from a traveler, began experiencing insomnia and disturbing dreams. The energy held in the mattress had brought the traveller's worries and anxieties, disturbing the monk's sleep and tranquility. Wallets. Sho then spoke of wallets that belong to someone else, the custodians of our material possessions. Wallets, Sho said with a sigh, aren't just containers of money. They are also reservoirs of the financial and emotional energies of the people who have touched them. Therefore, accepting a used wallet from another person could also mean welcoming their energies, which could influence our financial situation and emotional state. Sho recounted the story of a merchant who, after accepting an old wallet from a friend, began experiencing a series of financial misfortunes and constant anxiety. The energy held in the wallet had brought the worries and troubles of its previous owner, affecting the merchant's prosperity and serenity. 5. Old pots and pans. Sho continued, old pots and pans, the kitchen tools that keep the secrets of our meals, are not just cooking tools. They are custodians of the culinary and emotional energies of the people who have used them. Accepting pots or pans used by others could also mean welcoming their energies, which could influence the taste and quality of the food we prepare. Sho told the story of a woman known as an excellent cook. One day, she accepted an old pan from a relative, and from that day on, she began to experience a decline in her cooking skills. The energy held in the pan had carried the memories and emotions of its previous owner, thus influencing the flavor and goodness of her dishes. Used religious or spiritual objects. Sho emphasized that we should never accept used religious or spiritual objects, such as amulets and talismans that we often carry for protection. These objects, the elderly monk said with a serious expression, are not only symbols of faith, but also custodians of the spiritual energies of the people who have touched them. Accepting religious or spiritual objects used by others could also mean welcoming their energies, which could influence our spiritual practice and relationship with the divine. Sho told the story of a devotee who accepted a used amulet and found his spiritual practice disrupted by the previous owner's unresolved spiritual conflicts. 7. Clothing. Finally, Sho spoke about clothing. Clothes, he said, are in direct contact with our bodies and can absorb our energies. Accepting used clothing from others can bring their emotional and physical energies into our lives. Sho shared the story of a young woman who accepted a beautiful dress from a friend. She soon began to experience anxiety and restlessness, feelings that had been absorbed by the dress from its previous owner. Sho concluded, recognizing these 7 objects and their potential impact on our spiritual energy and well-being is crucial. Be mindful and selective about what you accept from others. Preserve your inner peace and emotional balance by surrounding yourself with objects that carry only positive energies. The disciples listened attentively, grateful for the wisdom imparted by their master, and vowed to apply these teachings in their daily lives. Who accepted an old talisman from a friend began to experience a series of intense spiritual visions and sensations. The energy held in the talisman, Sho said, carried with it the experiences and emotions of its previous owner, thus strengthening the spiritual bond and protection of the devotee. While the disciples were increasingly fascinated by their mentor's words and reflected on times they had accepted objects from others, the monk continued his lesson by discussing jewelry and objects of sentimental value. Jewelry and objects with sentimental value, Sho said with a nostalgic tone, hold the most precious memories of our lives. They are not only ornaments but also custodians of the emotional energies of the people who wore them. Accepting these items could also mean welcoming their energies, which can influence our feelings and memories associated with those objects. Many people, the monk added, when they inherit jewels from a mother or another ancestor, begin to experience a series of intense emotions and memories linked to their childhood. The energy held in the jewels carries the love and affection of the loved one who is no longer with us, thus recalling the sweetest moments of their life. As the sun hid behind the mountains and the silence surrounding the monastery provided moments of peace, Sho looked at the disciples with compassion and continued, "Remember that our energy is sacred and precious. Be aware of what you accept into your life, as each object carries a story and energy that can influence your inner being." The valuable lesson I would like you to take home is that we are responsible for the energies we bring into our lives. Every object, even the most seemingly harmless, can transmit vibrations that influence our physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. It is therefore important to be aware of what we accept into our lives and choose wisely what surrounds us. Whether it's a gift from a friend or a personal purchase, we take control of our energies and intentionally create a space of harmony and positivity. Sometimes we are so good and kind that we forget ourselves, allowing others to use us. We believe we must always be kind, and we end up becoming invisible. Have you ever wondered why you tend to be too kind, or why there are people who are always kind and ready to help you, even when you don't ask for help? In the Zen story you will hear soon, you will discover that there is a dark side to kindness. If you want to live peacefully, you need to understand it to find the right balance. Stay until the end, because the advice you will receive will help you live your relationships with others more serenely and find your inner peace. But before continuing, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share the video. This way, you will help us produce new content every day for your personal and spiritual growth. In a monastery nestled in the mountains of Japan lived the elderly monk Ero, famous for his extreme wisdom. One day, a girl named Shara approached him, sharing her disappointments. "Master, over time I have collected many disappointments linked to people who I thought were friends and who instead did not prove they were. I have always been an extremely kind person, but my concern for others has only brought me so much pain. What am I doing wrong?" The master smiled kindly and began to tell an ancient story, a legend passed down by monks for generations. The story was about a village surrounded by a lush forest, a place where kindness and generosity among people were the beating heart of the community. The prosperity of that village was linked to a magnificent cherry tree. "Imagine," Ero said to Shara, "a majestic tree whose roots go deep into the earth, a symbol of the strength and generosity of the village. Legend has it that the village prospered thanks to the wisdom of the people who learned to share their resources. However," Ero added, "over time some people began to take more than they gave. Some approached the cherry tree, picking the fruits without contributing to the care of the tree or without sharing them with the other villagers. So little by little, the generosity of the village began to weaken, and with it, the entire community." The young Chiara listened attentively, her eyes reflecting the desire to understand the nuances of life. Ero, with a serene gaze, continued to share the history of the village, bringing to light details and teachings that had been passed down through the centuries. "The moral of this story," said the monk, "is that generosity must be balanced. We must give with an open heart, but with wisdom and balance. If we give without discernment, we risk exhausting our resources and weakening our ability to be truly useful to others." Chiara was happy to listen to the master's words, and a new awareness about the concept of kindness arose in her. "We might think that kindness is always good since it helps maintain our well-being," Ero continued. "However, it is not when it crosses boundaries and leads to acting kindly in all circumstances. In this case, it is toxic kindness, a form of self-neglect where we forget ourselves to be attentive to the needs of others. Think of a parent who gives everything of themselves for the well-being of their children to the point of putting themselves in the background. Ero's story was enriched with new details. He described, for example, how some people, in their desire to accumulate, had neglected their duty to care for the tree that had given them so much. He explained how the connection between giving and taking was a delicate balance, a harmonious flow that required attention and respect. Shara, immersed in the story, began to reflect on her own life and the relationships she had experienced over the years. The monk, sensing her desire to learn, continued to share his wisdom. He talked about how expecting too much from others could lead to disappointment and how setting boundaries was essential to maintaining one's emotional well-being. "Remember," Ero said, "I'm not saying that doing something for others is wrong. It is, however, focusing only on others that is problematic. There are situations in which we want to please others because they ask for our help, or because we believe, sometimes mistakenly, that they need us, and we offer to make them feel good." Time passed peacefully as Ero and Shara delved into the nuances of generosity and wisdom. The monk spoke of how generosity, when it came from a balanced heart, could transform relationships and bring joy to both those who give and those who receive. Shara felt that the monk's wisdom was helping her understand many things. She learned that generosity should flow like a harmonious current, fueled by deep awareness and sincere love, and that it should never be forced. Ero concluded his narration with loving advice. "Kiara, try to be like the cherry tree in the village. Offer your generosity, but keep your balance. Find joy in the act of giving itself without expecting too much in return. Remember that extreme kindness can be harmful. Sometimes, in fact, we don't leave room for others to achieve what they want because we anticipate their needs. Furthermore, we focus too much on what others need and forget what we need. In this way, we cancel ourselves and begin to become invisible due to our own actions. By always being attentive to the needs of others, our own needs take a back seat. We trample on ourselves, taking away our value, and others take advantage of it." Kiara thanked the monk with a heart full of gratitude. She felt that the story and the advice that came from it would mark a new chapter in her life. But what does this story teach us? What is its moral? That generosity is a powerful gift, but it must be cultivated with care and awareness if we want it to bring benefits both for us and for those who receive our help. Balance in giving and receiving is the key to a fulfilling and meaningful life. If we are too kind, if we are willing to do whatever is asked of us just to be considered good people, we end up no longer knowing how to say no and being exploited. In the long run, this could have repercussions on personal motivation, self-esteem, and our mental balance. So what to do? Stop being good people? No, because there are various ways to be kind in a healthier way. You can set limits, making others understand how far they can go. Say goodbye to guilt, learning to say no when you can't or don't want to go further. Draw up a list of priorities so as to continue helping others, but without putting yourself aside. Remember, be kind, but not overly so. This could harm yourself and even those you want to help. What do you think? Write it in the comments and let's talk about it together. Is helping others a noble gesture or a useless sacrifice? Are you among those who always worry about others? And are you among those who put aside their own needs to help those in need? The dark side of kindness. 10 ways helping can hurt you. Have you ever wondered whether your altruism, however noble, may actually hide pitfalls? What if, paradoxically, your help, instead of bringing relief, could harm both you and the person you're helping? Stick around to the end of this story. and you'll discover 10 surprising ways you can hurt yourself by helping others. There is a dark side to helping people, and it's important for you to know it. We'll see this through a Zen story steeped in Buddhist wisdom. In an era where individualism seems to reign supreme, some still believe in the power of good and the strength of compassion. But how can we discern authentic help from a useless sacrifice? How can we avoid falling into the traps of excessive protection, intrusiveness, or lack of respect? Get ready for an introspective journey that will lead you to reconsider the very concept of help through the wisdom of an elderly Zen master and the stories of his disciples. You will discover how a gesture of altruism can turn into a boomerang if not accompanied by awareness and discernment. In an ancient Buddhist monastery located among the mountains of Japan, Master Teo sat surrounded by his pilgrims and disciples. Today I will talk to you about an often overlooked aspect of the spiritual path, the dark side of helping. Teo began in a calm voice. Helping others is a noble and precious action, but if not practiced with awareness, it can hide unsuspected dangers for our mental well-being and spiritual growth. The disciples listened attentively, attracted by the words of their mentor. They had always believed that helping others was an act of pure goodness without shadows or contradictions. Like a rushing river, our compassion can overwhelm ourselves and those we intend to help, undermining our inner peace, continued Master Teo. If we completely immerse ourselves in the suffering of others without maintaining the right distance, we risk being overwhelmed by darkness and losing our inner light. The disciples nodded, reflecting on their past experiences. They had helped friends through difficult times, dedicating themselves body and soul, but in the end they had felt frustrated, resentful, and lost. To help authentically, we must first cultivate our own inner peace and emotional balance, explained Master Teo. Only from a serene source can pure and beneficial help flow. If we ourselves are troubled and unstable, we cannot bring true relief to others. The disciples began to understand that true compassion was not a blind sacrifice, but a conscious act that required inner strength and wisdom. We must learn to discern between what is truly useful and what risks harming us, continued the monk. Sometimes our desire to help can be motivated by selfish needs, such as the need to feel indispensable or to receive approval. In these cases, our help will not be genuine and may even cause harm. The disciples looked within themselves, wondering if their actions had sometimes been guided by motivations of this kind. To help purely, we must be rooted in the present, free from expectations and attachments, Master Teo stated. We must offer our help with an open heart, without expecting anything in return, and accept that sometimes our help may not be appreciated or even rejected. True compassion is not tied to the outcome, but to the sincere intention to alleviate the suffering of others. Remember, the Master continued, that the spiritual path is a journey of personal growth. Helping others is an important aspect of this journey, but it must never dim our inner light. Let us learn to help with wisdom and compassion, supporting others without losing ourselves. Teo's words resonated in the hearts of the disciples, illuminating their spiritual path. Now, I'm going to teach you 10 ways you can hurt yourself when you try to help someone, the monk said in a calm voice. Knowing them, he continued, will allow you not to suffer and not to make others suffer. 1. Imposing one's will. Imposing one's will is like a river trying to divert its course, said the monk. One day, a young monk named Kenshin came across a village inhabited by poor and oppressed people. Moved by compassion, he decided to help them improve their living conditions and, with great zeal, began to impose on them his ideas about how they should live, work, and worship. However, as time passed, Kenshin realized that his help was not welcome. The people of the village saw him as an arrogant intruder who did not understand their culture and traditions. Kenshin felt frustrated and disappointed, unable to understand why his sacrifice was not appreciated. Master Teo explained to his disciples that Kenshin's mistake was to impose his will on others without respecting their freedom and autonomy. True help does not consist in shaping others according to our ideas, but in supporting them on their path of personal growth. "How can we help others without imposing our will on them?" asked a disciple. "We must learn to listen carefully, understand their needs, and offer our support in a respectful and non-intrusive way," Teo replied. 2. Ignoring your needs. "Ignoring your needs is another mistake you shouldn't make," he continued. One day, a young nun named Sakura dedicated herself body and soul to caring for a sick elderly man. She spent days and nights by his side, neglecting her sleep, nutrition, and health. However, as time passed, Sakura became seriously ill. She no longer had the strength to care for the elderly man and was forced to retreat. She felt guilty and frustrated, convinced that her sacrifice had been in vain. Sakura's mistake had been to ignore her own needs to help others. True help cannot arise from blind sacrifice, but from conscious compassion that also includes self-care. "How can we help others without exhausting our resources?" Teo asked his disciples. "We must learn to take care of ourselves both physically and emotionally in order to offer lasting and authentic support." 3. Taking responsibility for others. "Taking responsibility for others is too great a burden," said the monk, introducing another way of helping others that brings pain and frustration. One day, a monk named Taro came across a friend who had lost his job and family. Moved by compassion, Taro decided to take care of him, offering him a place to live and food to eat. However, as time passed, Taro noticed that his friend showed no desire to improve his situation. He relied on him completely, without looking for a new job or trying to reunite with his family. Taro felt frustrated and resentful, as if his burden had become unbearable, and he realized that his help was not doing his friend any good, preventing him from taking responsibility for his life. Master Teo explained to his disciples that Taro's mistake was to take on the responsibility of others, depriving his friend of the opportunity to grow and face his own challenges. Real help consists in encouraging autonomy and responsibility, not in replacing others. "How can we help others without carrying their burden?" asked a disciple. "We must learn to create a supportive environment that fosters growth and autonomy, encouraging people to take responsibility for their own choices and actions," replied the monk. 4. Invading privacy. "Invading privacy is another way of harming oneself. It's like a flower that withers because the sun is too strong," continued the monk. One day, a nun named Hanako became very worried about a friend of hers who seemed depressed and isolated. Trying to help her, Hanako began asking her persistent questions about her private life, pressuring her to share her secrets and fears. However, as time passed, the friend felt more and more oppressed and suffocated, so he shut himself down, refusing to share his feelings and distancing himself from Hanako. Hanako felt frustrated and confused, unable to understand why her attempt to help had such a negative effect. Hanako's mistake, Teo explained, was to invade her friend's privacy, not respecting her need for space and confidentiality. Real help is creating a safe and welcoming environment where people feel free to share what they want without pressure or expectations. "So how can we help others without invading their privacy?" a disciple asked. "We must learn to respect their boundaries and give them the time and space needed to process their emotions and deal with their difficulties," Teo replied. Another mistake not to make when we try to help others is to lose our identity. One day, a monk named Kenji met a very talented artist, but with an introverted and insecure character. Kenji, admiring his art, decided to help him become known and successful. She encouraged him to enter competitions, organize exhibitions, and promote his work. However, as time passed, Kenji realized that his support was unintentionally dimming the artist's inner light. Driven by the desire to please Kenji, the artist began to distort his artistic style and conform to public expectations and market trends. The artist's paintings lost their originality and depth, becoming mere copies of what was required by the market. Kenji began to feel guilty for having unintentionally pushed the artist to betray his true artistic essence. "How can we help others without making them lose their identity?" asked a disciple. "Encouraging them to express their true essence. We need to give them the space and support to explore their creativity and express themselves authentically," Teo replied. "Disrespect is another way of hurting the people we want to help and ourselves," the monk continued. One day, a woman named Yukiko came across a group of children playing on the street. Noticing their rude and disrespectful behavior, Yukiko decided to intervene. He scolded them severely, trying to teach them the rules of good behavior. However, as time passed, Yukiko noticed that the children were not receptive to her teachings. In fact, her severity distanced them even further, making them feel judged and misunderstood. Yukiko realized that her approach was not effective. True teaching cannot arise from coercion and reproach, but from respect and understanding. With a new attitude, she began to listen to the children carefully, trying to understand their reasons and emotions. Instead of judging them, she offered to help them find creative solutions to their problems, encouraging them to express themselves in respectful and constructive ways. Over time, the children began to change their attitudes. They felt listened to and valued by Yukiko, and this pushed them to behave more responsibly and respectfully. Yukiko had learned a valuable lesson. True help does not consist in imposing one's ideas on others, but in creating an environment of respect and understanding where people can grow and learn independently. Another thing you must avoid doing is overloading the people you want to help with information, Teo said, introducing another important aspect. One day, a monk named Hiro met a friend who was feeling overwhelmed by worries and stress. Moved by compassion, Hiro began bombarding him with advice and suggestions, trying to help him solve all his problems at once. However, as time passed, Hiro's friend felt more and more confused and overwhelmed. The amount of information and advice was excessive, and he failed to discern what was truly useful from what was just background noise. Hiro realized that his help was not effective because true support does not consist in bombarding others with information, but in helping them find the inner resources to face life's challenges. So how can we help others without overloading them with information? A disciple asked. We must learn to listen to their needs, understand their situation, and offer them our support in a targeted and non-oppressive way, Teo replied. Overprotection is also something that harms both ourselves and those we want to help, the monk continued. One day, a nun named May became very worried about her younger sister, who seemed shy and insecure. Moved by compassion, May decided to protect her from all dangers and difficulties, trying to solve every problem for her. However, as time passed, May's little sister became more and more frustrated and dependent on her sister. She did not have the opportunity to develop her skills and autonomy, and felt unable to face life's challenges on her own. May realized that her help was not effective because true support does not consist in protecting others from every obstacle, but in helping them develop the strength and resilience to face life's challenges independently. With kindness and patience, May began to encourage her little sister to make her own decisions, face her fears, and learn from her mistakes. She offered her support and encouragement, but didn't stop her from having her own experiences, making her own mistakes, and growing as a person. May had learned a valuable lesson. True help isn't about doing things for others, but about helping them discover their inner strength and realize their full potential. So how can we help others without overprotecting them? A disciple asked. We must learn to trust them, encourage them to make their own decisions, and face life's challenges with courage and determination, Teo replied. Lack of detachment is another way to hurt yourself, Teo said. One day, a nun living in the monastery dedicated herself body and soul to caring for a sick friend. She spent days and nights at his side, neglecting her sleep, nutrition and health, until she became ill and could no longer be useful. The friend, realizing her state of suffering, asked her to take care of herself. He told her that her help was invaluable, but that it could not be effective if she was unable to recharge her energy. Master, how can we help others without losing sight of ourselves? Asked a disciple. We must learn to set healthy boundaries, take care of our physical and mental well-being, and recharge our energy so we can offer lasting and authentic support, Teo replied. But what does this story teach us? Master Teo asked his disciples. Helping others is a noble and compassionate act, but it must never turn into a sacrifice that harms ourselves. True support is finding a balance between giving and receiving, between compassion and wisdom. By helping others with awareness and love, we can help create a more harmonious and compassionate world for all. What does it mean not to have friends? In a world where some have a large number of friends and others have few but good ones, friendship is a serious thing. Today, the term is used too easily, often equating acquaintances with friends. In this video, thanks to a Zen story about personal growth, we will explore what it means to not have friends and whether this is something to worry about or not. Stay until the end, because the moral of this story will provide valuable insights into the true meaning of friendship. A girl named Elena, a kind and pure-hearted person, often felt sad and lonely. She looked around and saw the other inhabitants of her town with their groups of friends, laughing and sharing happy moments together. This vision caused her a feeling of emptiness and lack since she had no people with whom to share her life. One day, while traveling through Japan, she decided to seek solace and advice from the monk Kobo, a wise hermit who lived in a small monastery on the outskirts of a town. The monk was known for his wisdom and compassion, but above all for his solitary life. Elena understood that Kobo would be the right person to ask for advice about her loneliness. Monk Kobo, Elena said quietly, I feel lonely, and it seems that the lack of friends is a problem. Everyone around me seems happy with their friends, and I wonder why I can't have the same joy. The monk Kobo looked at her with compassionate eyes and invited her to sit down. Elena, friendship is truly a precious gift, but your happiness shouldn't come from how many friends you have. I would like to share with you the reasons why not having many friends, or having none at all, is not something to worry about and can even be an advantage. The young woman, still immersed in her melancholic mood, asked Kobo to better explain the concept of having few or no friends. Kobo, with his wisdom born from decades of studies and reflections, began to reveal the secrets of authentic friendship. Dear Elena, the first thing I want to tell you is that relationships and human bonds are very important. This means that in life we should not measure them in terms of quantity, but rather quality. Would you rather have a large number of people with whom you can share trivial things, or a very small number of people with whom to share intense emotions and moods? The girl, faced with these rhetorical questions, began to reflect. Many of the people she saw around her were full of friends, but what was the quality of those relationships? She asked herself intimately. Kobo, happy to read in the young woman's eyes that she was beginning to see things differently, continued listing the reasons why having few friends, or none at all, should not be seen as a problem. Having few friends, he said, guarantees a certain degree of freedom and authenticity. In this way, it is easier to be yourself and live without restrictions or external influences. Imagine that you love a particular activity which may seem strange or uninteresting to others. If you have few or no friends, you have the freedom to pursue that passion without being judged. Remember, if you want to live a fulfilling life, you don't have to conform to what others think is cool or normal. After all, who decides what normality really is? Elena thought about one of the things she loved most, observing the starry sky on clear nights. This interest of hers was not understood by her classmates, who made fun of her and saw her as strange. Kobo went on to explain that quantity is never synonymous with quality. Having fewer friends, he continued, allows you to focus on building deeper, more meaningful relationships. Imagine having just one friend with whom you share the joys and sorrows of life. This connection could be so deep that the person understands all your emotional nuances. This is a priceless treasure. Eleanor reflected on this idea, remembering an episode in which a girl she knew supported her in a difficult moment, understanding her without needing many words. She began to understand that in life, instead of wanting to have dozens of friends who are not really friends, it is much better to focus on finding that one person who reads and sees life like you. The monk, after giving Elena time to reflect, continued with his explanations and spoke of another reason why he preferred quality over quantity in human relationships. Human relationships, he explained, require a lot of emotional energy. Having few friends allows you to focus this energy on the people who really matter. Kobo enhanced the idea using a practical example. Think about how many conflicts or tensions usually occur in large groups of friends. Maintaining small relationships allows you to preserve your positive energy for those who truly support you. If you have to argue with someone to resolve a conflict, it is much better that it be a person who really matters in your life, or not. Elena found that group dynamics were often stressful, while more intimate interactions brought her joy and comfort. Kobo went on to highlight how loneliness can be an opportunity to explore oneself and grow personally. In the tranquility of your solitude, you can discover hidden passions, latent interests, or unexplored talents. You are not limited by the expectations of others, and this allows you to grow in surprising ways. So, dear Elena, my invitation is to see loneliness in another way than you have done until now. Having few but good friends allows us to more easily find moments to be alone with ourselves, and this significantly helps our spiritual and personal growth. Elena thought about how much time she could dedicate to her personal interests when she wasn't trying at all costs to be with groups of people, and how dedicating herself to herself and solitude distanced her from that search for other people's approval that did her no good. In those moments, she discovered aspects of herself that she didn't even know, and it was beautiful. Finally, Kobo emphasized that the absence of social limitations allows for greater flexibility in our lives. Imagine receiving a job opportunity in a faraway place. With no strings attached, you are free to embrace new adventures without having to think about how they will affect your social circle. Elena thought about those who, with fewer close ties, had the possibility of taking advantage of opportunities without restrictions. She met people who, thanks to this extreme autonomy, had flown far away to realize their dreams and expectations. Kobo concluded, "When you have few friends, but they are genuine, you can move to the other side of the world and never lose them. They will remain by your side beyond space and time." After listening attentively, the young woman understood that she had developed a new awareness about the concept of friendship. Not having many friends does not mean being alone, but being able to concentrate on one's own interiority and the search for some connections that really matter. Master Kobo hugged her gently and added, "Always remember that your happiness should not depend on the number of friends you have, but on the quality of the connections you cultivate with the few you have." I have known people who say they have no friends only to discover that in their life there was just one person who counted as 100 friends. And remember something else. People who have few friends are the most authentic and profound people I have ever met. They are people who do not settle for mediocrity. Usually, those who tend not to get along with everyone and want to have few people around them have an extraordinary inner world and truly rare human qualities. In conclusion, what is the moral of this story? That loneliness, seen from a new perspective, can be a valuable ally in the search for happiness, spiritual growth, and personal fulfillment, and therefore should not be feared. And that to live happily, it is not necessary to have a multitude of friends. You just need to have the right ones, those that add real value to your life. Because if you tend to be a loner, it is because you have a higher than average sensitivity. Discover the power of silence. Have you ever wondered how badly spoken words can hurt, and how much destructive force can be hidden in sharp language? And again, have you ever thought about how silence can be a resource for living better and getting what we want? Thanks to this Zen story you are about to hear, you will discover that the power of silence, according to Buddhist wisdom, allows us not only to live in peace, but also to get what we want. Words can be light feathers that caress, or heavy stones that leave indelible marks. In this dance between saying and keeping silent, we should ask ourselves whether silence can be the key to mitigating the destructive power of words. So stay until the end, because, in addition to exploring the language of silence, in the last part of the video, we will see the 14 reasons why learning to be silent can give us a better life. But before continuing, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so you will stay updated on new publications. In an ancient Japanese monastery lived the elderly monk Yosai, famous for his extreme wisdom and for having made silence a reason for living. During a lesson, the monk began to talk to his disciples about the importance of silence, taking inspiration from the ancient words of Buddha. Like a secret garden that guards our existence, Yosai began, words are seeds that can give life to flowers of joy or sting like poisonous thorns. Remember that the tongue we use is like a sharp blade, capable of cutting deeply. Then, smiling at those who listened attentively, he explained that according to Buddhist philosophy, misused words can be dangerous weapons. Even if they do not inflict physical wounds, words, Yosai pointed out, have the power to hurt emotionally, creating invisible scars on the soul. It is crucial to understand their potential, to understand how they can build, but also destroy. When we speak words with kindness and wisdom at the right time, we can open doors to success. Conversely, if we speak rudely or at inappropriate times, we can wreak havoc on the fabric of our lives. Listen to this story, said Yosai. In a city vibrant with life, there was a famous showman known for his eloquence. Every square, every theater was his stage, and his speaking was like a spell that captured everyone's attention. The power of silence. The showman, however, was tormented by his inability to find his inner peace. So one day, when he heard about a hermit who lived in an isolated mountain, he decided to visit him to see if he could help. Respectfully, the showman asked the sage to help him find inner peace, explaining his frustration. The wise, elderly sage proposed an experiment to remain silent for 15 days. The showman accepted the sage's invitation. Although it was difficult, he immersed himself in silence with determination. Over the next few days, abstaining from his usual flow of words, he began to sense a change. The inner frenzy that had obsessed him eased, and as time passed, he discovered a serenity he had never experienced before. At the end of the period of silence, the showman returned to the sage with a transformed look and bright eyes, recognizing the peace he had found in the silence. The sage, looking into his eyes, said, "Silence has the power to calm the storm within you. By using fewer words, you have discovered an inner richness that no number of performances could ever match." The monk Yosai, having finished the story, highlighted the central message. Silence is a hidden treasure that can resolve inner restlessness. Words can be precious, but silence sometimes is the elixir that heals invisible wounds of the soul. While the disciples, fascinated by the story, commented among themselves on what they had just heard, Yosai said to them, "Friends, now I will tell you about the 14 reasons why silence is so precious." 1. Promotes effective listening. Silence allows us not only to hear the words of others, but to grasp the implicit meaning behind expressions and gestures. Like the light wind that whispers among the leaves, silence allows us to perceive the most delicate nuances of human communication. This avoids misunderstandings and makes interactions healthier. 2. Enhances self-awareness. In a world full of noise and distractions, carving out moments of silence to reflect on your life is crucial. Think of silence as a serene pool in which the mind can clearly contemplate its existence, as clear water reflects the sky without distortion. 3. Cultivates patience. Just as the gardener waits patiently for flowers to bloom, silence teaches us to appreciate the calm that comes from patience. In moments of frustration, silence becomes fertile ground in which to cultivate patience, allowing challenges to bloom like flowers after a regenerating rain. Encourages deep reflection. Silence promotes reflection and deep understanding. Like the concentric circles created on water when a stone falls, silence allows us to investigate our thoughts and emotions in depth. Through the practice of silent reflection, an inner space is created where the mind can explore without superficial distractions, allowing us to develop more ideas and find solutions. Fuels creativity and innovation. In silence, the mind is like an unexplored garden that reveals its deepest secrets. Similarly to nature, which in its silence hides creative processes that lead to the birth of new forms of life, the mind immersed in silence can generate innovative ideas and unexpected connections. Enhances non-verbal communication. Just as the wind carries the scent of flowers, silence allows us to perceive the non-verbal messages of others. In practicing silence, we learn to decipher body language and facial expressions, thus enriching human interactions. The things we can understand about others when we remain silent are innumerable. 7. Builds mental discipline. Silence is a teacher who teaches the virtue of patience and control. Just as the wind adapts to the characteristics of the landscape without ever getting lost, but insinuates itself between the mountains and continues its journey, those who practice silence develop the ability to respond thoughtfully to others and to the challenges of life. 8. Anchors us in the present moment. In silence, we are immersed in the present moment, like a leaf floating on the river without resisting the current. This immersion allows us to live authentically, appreciating each experience without judgment or distraction. 9. Fosters empathy. Silence allows us to connect deeply with others. Through silence, our ability to understand other people's emotions develops, nurturing stronger and more lasting bonds. 10. Enhances mental and emotional well-being. In silence, we find an interior calm that is like a safe refuge from the storm of life. Far from the constant noise and distractions of today's society, silence offers an oasis of peace in which to rediscover oneself and find answers to the most complex questions. 11. Improves communication quality. Silence makes us more aware of the words we speak. The practice of silence refines the quality of communication, encouraging clearer and more effective dialogues. It allows us to think carefully about the words we decide to use. 12. Cultivates gratitude. When we practice silence, we create space for gratitude. Like a gardener grateful for the rain that embraces his field, silence allows us to appreciate the gifts of life. The practice of silence makes us aware of the blessings that surround us, cultivating an attitude of gratitude. 13. Strengthens relationships. Silence promotes the creation and maintenance of healthy and deep relationships. In silence, we connect without the need for superfluous words. In this way, we create spaces of authentic connection and establish meaningful and lasting relationships based on mutual understanding and silent sharing. 14. Accesses inner wisdom. The most important thing about silence is that it serves as a portal to inner wisdom. Like a secret door into the heart of the soul, silence invites us to explore our inner world without external interference. In this quiet space, we can access profound insights, illuminating the path to understanding the mysteries of life and our spiritual path. The moral of this story, Yosai concluded, lies in recognizing the value of silence in critical moments. Let us remember that silence, understood as a precious gift, offers us the possibility of truly listening and understanding the transformative power of reflection. Therefore, let us learn to weigh words wisely and combine them with sweetness. In this balance, we will find a key to building more harmonious relationships and cultivating the inner peace that comes from the language of silence. Zen wisdom on recognizing when someone is using you. Introduction. In life, it's important to recognize when someone is using you. This awareness helps you protect your inner peace and respond appropriately. In this Zen story, we explore 10 teachings to help you identify selfish intentions. Make yourself comfortable and stay until the end to learn how to defend your inner peace. But first, please subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, and share this video. Your support helps us create valuable content for your spiritual growth. The story begins. In a quiet monastery in the mountains of Japan, the wise monk Chomi decided to teach his disciples about recognizing selfish intentions. As his disciples gathered, eager to learn, Chomi began. 1. The smile. A sincere smile warms the heart like a ray of sunshine, said Chomi, but a forced smile, where the eyes do not participate, signals hidden intentions. The eyes are the mirror of the soul. If they remain cold and distant, there is a void between the words and the heart. 2. Lightness of the soul. Chomi pointed to a bird in the sky. A sincere person is like a free bird, unburdened, but those with selfish intentions are like caged birds, seeking only to take advantage. 3. Awareness. To recognize selfish intentions, be aware of your own state, Chomi advised. Awareness helps you free your soul from those who wish to trap you for their gain. Fluidity. Sincere relationships flow like river water, Chomi continued. If you encounter obstacles, resistance or manipulation, it's a sign someone is trying to control your life. Courage. Have the courage to resist manipulation, Chomi said. Like a rock in the river, stand firm in your truth. Protect your uniqueness. 6. Constancy. A sincere person is like the stars, always present, Chomi explained. But those with selfish intentions are like shooting stars, shining briefly before disappearing. 7. Observation. To understand someone's true character, observe their behavior over time, Chomi advised. Repeated actions reveal a person's true nature. 8. Depth. Authentic relationships have deep roots, like trees drawing nutrients from the earth, Chomi said. Those with shallow intentions are like grass, withering in the first wind. B. Wisdom. Use wisdom to understand the depth of your relationships, Chomi instructed. If someone shows they lack or do not want deep roots, let them go without regrets. 10. Guidance. A sincere person is like a lighthouse guiding you safely, Chomi concluded. If someone is leading you towards danger, it's time to change course. Moral of the story. This story teaches us to recognize the signs of selfish intentions and to protect our inner peace. Wisdom, observation, and courage help us navigate relationships, ensuring they are built on sincerity and mutual respect. Silence and reflection can also guide us in understanding the true nature of those around us. Recognizing when someone is using you is crucial for protecting your inner peace and well-being. In the Zen story you are about to hear, you will learn 10 teachings to help you identify such people. So, make yourself comfortable and stay until the end. Because when you have listened to these teachings and the final moral of the story, you will know exactly how to defend your inner peace from those who would harm it. But before we continue, please subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share the video. Thanks to these small gestures, you will help us produce valuable content every day for your spiritual growth. In a quiet monastery in the mountains of Japan, the wise monk Chomi decided to teach his disciples the signs that indicate the selfish intentions of those who approach us. His disciples, eager for knowledge, gathered around him to draw insights for personal growth from Buddhist wisdom. Wisdom lies in the ability to read the teachings that the world and the people around us present to us, said the monk. The first lesson is the smile. A sincere smile is like a ray of sunshine that warms the heart. But when the smile is forced and the eyes do not participate in the joy, it is a sign of hidden intentions. Chomi pointed to the monastery garden where flowers bloomed. Just as a flower opens to the light, a sincere person opens to the truth. But if you notice a false smile, be aware that there is deception behind it. A young disciple asked, "But how can we recognize a fake smile?" Chomi replied, "Look at the eyes. The eyes are the mirror of the soul. If they do not participate in the smile, if they remain cold and distant, there is a void between the words and the heart." As they walked in the gardens, the monk pointed to a small bird hovering in the sky. The second sign is the lightness of the soul. A sincere person is like a free bird in the sky, without weights or chains holding them back. But those with selfish intentions are like caged birds, only trying to take advantage. The third teaching is awareness, continued the master. If you perceive that someone wants to trap you for their own gain, be aware of your state. Only with awareness can you open the cage and free your soul. Chomi then pointed to the river. The fourth signal is fluidity. Sincere relationships flow like river water, unhindered. But if you notice obstacles, resistance, or manipulation, it is a sign that someone is trying to control the flow of your life. One disciple asked, "What if we find ourselves being manipulated?" Chomi responded, "The fifth signal is courage. Have the courage to resist manipulation. Like a rock that challenges the river's currents, stand firm in your truth." The monk then pointed to the starry sky above them. The sixth signal is constancy. Those with sincere intentions are like the stars, always present even in the darkest nights. But those interested only in their own gain are like shooting stars, shining briefly before disappearing. A young disciple asked, "How can we be sure of someone's steadfastness?" Chomi replied, "Use the seventh teaching, observation. Observe people's behavior over time. Repeated actions reflect a person's true character." As they walked beneath the monastery's ancient trees, Chomi pointed to the deep roots. The eighth sign is depth. Authentic relationships have deep roots, like trees that draw from the earth to grow healthy. But those only interested in the surface are like grass that withers in the wind. Another disciple asked, "What if we see that someone behaves like the grass?" Chomi introduced the ninth teaching, wisdom. Understand the true depth of your relationships and act wisely. If someone doesn't want to have deep roots, let them go without regrets. The monk then pointed to a distant lighthouse. The 10th teaching is guidance. A sincere person is like a lighthouse lighting the way, but if someone is only guiding you toward the rocks, it's time to change course. And now we come to the moral of the story. Every season has its secrets, and so it is in life, said the monk. We have explored the signs that indicate who is close to us only for their own benefit. Remember, life is like a garden. It flourishes with sincere relationships, but can also harbor weeds that try to stifle its beauty. We have learned to recognize these weeds and the signs that reveal hidden intentions. Now that you know these secrets, you must maintain your wisdom. Don't reject anyone who approaches you, but be aware. Be like the wise gardener who cultivates carefully, eliminating weeds without ever ceasing to nourish what is authentic. A young disciple raised his hand and asked, "But how can we truly distinguish those who are sincere from those who are false?" Chomi, smiling, replied, "The answer is within you. Listen to your heart with serenity. Sincerity sounds like a harmonious melody, while deception is a discordant note. Don't be afraid to walk away from those who don't bring peace and well-being to your inner garden. Remember that your life is a secret garden. Choosing which flowers to show the world is an act of deep consciousness. Let us then learn the art of confidentiality, know the power of our words, and use silence as a treasure. Let your inner garden bloom delicately, because in that silence you will find the strength and wisdom that only privacy can offer.